afternoon, esteemed members of this fine community. My name is Miss Sharon Schlegelmilch, and I'm charged with educating our youth at Altaville Grammar School. To that end, I am honored and privileged to have the esteemed author and world traveler, Mr. Mark Twain, who has traveled back to Calaveras County. Good afternoon, Mr. Twain, or should I say Mr. Clemens?
Call me Mr. Esteemed. No, call me Sam. Sam is good. Sam is good. Or I guess for a school marm, it'd be proper. Call me Mr. Clemens. Call me Mr. Call me what you will. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Well, we're so pleased to have you here back in Calaveras County. And the townsfolk have such an affection for you after the publishing of the celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County that they want to have a festival on October 11th. We certainly hope that you can attend.
Well, I'll be there. I understand that it will be a fete not to be missed. Everybody will be there, hoi polloi, even of the season. There's going to be music, singing, dancing, and afterwards there'll be sandwiches.
Yes, we certainly hope that all the townspeople will also attend. But I think we'd like to have a little information about you, Mr. Twain. What originally brought you to Calaveras County?
Stagecoach.
Well, I mean, but why did you land in Calaveras County of all places?
That's a touchy little question there. If you must know, I was a victim of circumstances, but the happy stances in that Providence brought me here. I'm not quite an expert at everything Calaveras, but I do know that while here, I gained quite an extensive expansion of my appreciation for storytelling. Now, the story that brought me here, as you may know, I was a writer for the Daily Morning Call, San Francisco, Buena Vista there, and I had left my position there and was not doing so well. Still writing occasionally for the Golden Era and my daily article up in Virginia City at the Territorial Enterprise, but I was not making ends meet so well. And my partner, Steve Gillis, who originally met on the Territorial Enterprise, he had gone to the Call. I followed him there. And one day when walking home from his work at the Call, he heard a ruckus at the establishment of Big Jim Casey. And he espied Big Jim sweeping the floor with a little chap who had no business fighting with Jim than a rat would with a terrier, or a cat with a terrier, whatever. And Steve, always going to the aid of the less fortunate, he inserted himself into this ruckus. And Big Jim Casey let the little fella go when he saw Steve say, why don't you pick on someone your own size? And little fella went out the door. Big Jim Casey went over the door and said, Mister, since you've inserted yourself into this affair that you had no business doing, I'll just finish the business with you. And he locked the door and put the key in his vest pocket. Meanwhile, Steve, he saddled over to the bar and just waited for the onslaught. And Big Jim Casey, he come at him like a bull, and Steve Gillis, he picked up a beer pitcher and hit him over the head, breaking him, and down went McGinty, sort of, as Big Jim did. After a bit, officer hearing the ruckus came, pried the door open and saw Big Jim bleeding from his head, and called an ambulance to have Big Jim taken to the hospital, and arrested Steve on assault and battery charges. It's a long story, I had to warn you. So I had bailed Steve out of jail a few times. And this time, being awfully poor, out of work from the Call, etc., I put up my pocket watch and put the $500 bail up, and I was mad as can be with Steve for getting into a ruckus like that. But on the next morning, the following morning, on our way to the Call, we run into Officer Billy Blitz on the force, a friend of ours, who we asked him how Big Jim Casey was faring. And in his Irish brogue, he said, "Oh, don't you have a heap of trouble there? Oh, Steve, I don't know how you're going to get out of this, because I come from the hospital where or Big Jim was in a delirium at 10 this morning and it doesn't look like he's going to make it. So I said, well, confound it, Steve, what are we going to do? I don't have the money to pay the bail in full for you, and you'll probably go to jail for this, and you best go up to your case up on the Territorial Enterprise in Virginia City till this blows over. And what'll I do? The chief of police he doesn't have any love for me after the articles published that I wrote in the Territorial Enterprise talking about the Irish gangs throwing stones at the poor Chinaman laundrymen, and the police force looking the other way and laughing about it. And so knowing that they probably have it in for me, what am I going to do? Well, Steve at that point said, well, go up to Calaveras, go up to my brother's cabin there at Jackass Hill and lay low, and it'll be good for your writing. You probably hear some stories that'll help you. And this later turned out to be prescient. So Steve went his way to Virginia City, and I came up here to Angels Camp, as it were. And
that's how you landed here. But what did inspire you to write the celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County?
Well, as I said, Steve's prescient telling me I'd hear stories that would inspire my writing. Well, sure enough, I did. Well, holed up here in Angels Camp during some rain, where the Frenchman was making his inedible meals at the Angels Hotel. I heard a story from a local, very earnest fellow, who I inserted in the story as the storyteller, who recited as fact everything about the Jumping Frog story. I see you have it here. I'd need my glasses to read that. So I jotted in my notebook number 4, in fact, the story, because it was the more remarkablest story. I also recorded the story of Tom Courts the cat, Dick Baker of Dead Horse Gulch's cat, who told me that story, which is a wonderful story. I'll be telling that at that Wild West Fest, and I'll be telling the Calaveras Jumping Frog story at the Wild West Fest, among others, the genuine Mexican plug, and various other interpretations, lectures, and stories, if you will. So I picked up the stories here, and after 3 or 4 months here, what was that, winter of '63, spring of '64, where it was around there somewhere. I went back to San Francisco and picked up my mail, and there my friend Artemus Ward, who was a very famous humorist, had invited me to share a short story for his next publication. So I wrote up the Jumping Frog story, and I sent it to his publisher there in New York, and little did I know I was 6 months too late for his book. So the story didn't go into his book, but his publisher, he took the liberty of sharing it with the press in New York City, and from there it was published and then spread, as you may know, back in those days, something that was published in the big publication would get reprinted around the world in smaller publications. So my nom de plume, Mark Twain, became world renowned from that Jumping Frog story. And I'll tell you something. Mark Twain, everybody says it's because in Virginia City I'd go into the saloons, and when I didn't have coin, I'd say to the bartender, just Mark Twain on your board and I'll pay you later. That may not be true. And it may not have anything to do with the depth of the Mississippi when we're laying anchor, when it's going down. How deep is it now? Well, it's Mark Twain, that 2 fathom, 4 fathom, whatever that is. None of that's really true. There was another author, another journalist named Mark Twain that I had been writing my article there at the Territorial Enterprise, and I liked the name Mark Twain, and the other journalist retired.
So you took his name.
Don't tell anyone.
Oh, I see. Well, what is it like to be a world-renowned author? What is your life like? What is that like?
Well, it's a blessing. It's a mixed blessing. At times I find myself what do you say? Idol, the idolatry, the glowing star, the would-be hero of many, and other times the pressure and anxiety it brings me is forgive me, is hell horrid. I will at times have no creative juices flowing, and other times it comes easily to me, and I'll have a quip, or I'll have a story, or I'll work months, and it'll pay off. And as I see, I have my most recent release.
Yes, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
Yes, it's unlike Tom Sawyer, unlike Innocents Abroad, unlike Prince and the Pauper, the previous book. This one has none of that melodrama or simplicity of story. This one has some deep character and moral stuff.
Oh, that and does it also? It also includes your life on the Mississippi.
Some of it, as I said, I've drawn from stories that I've heard, and I draw from my own life experiences and use them whenever possible in my books. You'll see that some of the characters in there were friends that I grew up with there in Hannibal.
And so some of our townspeople who've never left the town want to know about your travels abroad. Yes, let's hear about
I've been very fortunate. First, I traveled when I don't even remember, from Florida, Missouri to, of course, Hannibal, Missouri, and then from there, a life on the Mississippi as a steamboat captain for a ways. And then when the conflagration of the Civil War broke out, I could no longer do my work on the Mississippi, so I joined the Confederacy for a few weeks until I had enough of that, and then came west with my brother Orion, who was secretary to the new governor of the new territory of Nevada, and there was worked for him for some time, and little did I know I wasn't going to get any pay for it. So I tried some silver mining there at the Comstock Lode, Aurora, let's see where else, Virginia City. To get away from that, I had to get up there to Big Lake Bigley, was it?
Yes.
That was a bit of another conflagration that took place up there.
Well, speaking of Lake Bigley, my cousin, Kurt Schlegelmilch, who lives in Nevada, and did suggest this gathering.
Kurt Schlegelmilch?
Yes.
Well, I've heard all about him, and frankly, I'm getting tired of it.
Well, we want to know a little bit about that fire that happened at Lake Bigley that apparently you might have been responsible for.
They're going to change the name of that lake, I believe, they're talking about Tahoe, that Bigley, Tahoe, I don't know. Either way, I had gotten up to Bigley with one of my mining partners just to get away from the confounded daily grind and lack of profit. And he went off to do some hunting, and I got cold. It gets cold up there, and I lit a small fire to stay warm, and one low-hanging branch caught, and then another one, and another, and a whole conflagration commenced, and my partner I was there with, he come running, and we both looked at the flames getting so high we couldn't get out, so we both got in the boat and just rowed and watched the flames. I admit it, but I won't take responsibility.
Well, I do declare that was a very unfortunate incident that a lot of the people in Nevada are still discussing.
Well, I'm disgusted by it too. It was boneheaded of me. I've done a lot of things I'm not necessarily fond of. I took up smoking a cigar when I was 10 years old. No, that's something I'm fond of, although habits are hard to break. I have it as a rule never to smoke in excess. I only smoke one cigar at a time, and I never smoke while asleep.
Well, a lot of our younger viewers are interested to know what it was like to be a river pilot.
Oh, well, I recommend you do it then.
Well,
it's very hard work. You get to know the people, you get to know the rivers and the culture. I found in traveling is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And yet many of our people here, we need it on these accounts alone. One cannot appreciate people and things by staying in one's own corner of the world all one's lifetime. I've been lucky as a journalist to have my trip to the Sandwich Islands sponsored, writing for the paper in Sacramento, and I've been fortunate to have I had 5 different newspapers pay my way in '67 on the very first commercial cruise line out of New York to Europe, and a highlight trip to the Holy Land. General Sherman was to be on that boat, and as well as Reverend Stowe. They both backed out, and I ended up being the only celebrity on that trip. A bit of notoriety, and most of the folk that were on that, the passengers, were like yourself, very pious, very proper, and generally their ticket was paid for by their church so they could go to the Holy Land. And while there, I was a little bit put off watching them chip away at the holy relics to bring back to their churches as a memento. And I was so upset I wrote about them. I wrote about the nearly having my throat cut by a French barber in Paris, and I wrote about the observations of the pious there in the Holy Land. And when I returned home, I bought all those letters back from the newspapers and compiled my first book with my dear Olivia as my editor. It was named The Innocents Abroad, or The Pilgrim's Progress. And now, so far in my lifetime, it's the best-selling book extant that I've written, that I've penned. And I've made a small fortune off that book. Might be because the distributor, well, he only sold one other book, and he had a fleet of salesmen who'd go door to door selling Bibles. And most folks, well, they already had a Bible. They asked, what else you got? Well, I've got this book called The Innocents Abroad about Europe and the Holy Land, written by a fellow named Mark Twain, and they'd buy that. That's my first fortune.
Huh. Well, I'm just wondering, would you be willing to recite some of your work for?
Are you sure you wouldn't like me to recite some Shakespeare?
Well, no.
To be or not to be, that is the sound and fury and full of. Why don't you have me read a little bit about what my daughter Susie has written in a biography she's written of me.
Well, that would be serendipitous.
I'll see to it right here. All right. Now I read a bit here from the biography. My biography is written by my dear beloved daughter Susie's hand. The difference between Papa and Mama, she writes, is that Mama loves morals and Papa loves cats. I shall now address both topics. First, morals, both general and personal. Now, the observance of Christian private morals has made this nation what it is, a clean and upright people in its private domestic life, an honest and honorable people in its private commercial life. No alien nation can claim superiority over it in these regards. No critic, both foreign or domestic, can challenge the validity of this truth. During 363 days of the year, the American citizen is true to his Christian private morals and keeps undefiled the nation's character at its best and highest. Then on the other 2 days of the year, He leaves his Christian private morals at home and carries his Christian public morals to the tax office and to the polls, and does the best he can to damage and undo his whole year's faithful and righteous worth. Now, as for personal morals, well, I learned those the first time I ever stole a watermelon. Or, that is, I think it was the first time. Anyway, it was around there somewhere. Now, I stole it out of a farmer's wagon while he was serving another customer. And well, stolen's too harsh of a word. I retired. I withdrew that watermelon and took it to a far corner of the lumber yard, and I broke it open. It was green. It was the greenest watermelon that was grown in the valley that year. The minute I saw that it was green, I was sorry. I began to reflect. Now, reflection is the beginning of reform. For if you don't reflect when you commit a crime, then that crime is of no use. It might as well have been committed by someone else. You must reflect, or the value is lost. That crime, you are not vaccinated against doing it again. I began to reflect. I said to myself, what ought a boy to do who has stolen a watermelon, a green watermelon? What would George Washington do, the father of his country, the only American who could not tell a lie? What would he do? There is only one right, high, noble thing for any boy to do who has stolen a watermelon of that class. He must make restitution. He must restore that stolen property to his rightful owner. I said I would do it. I made good that resolution. I felt it to be a noble, uplifting obligation. I rose up, spiritually stronger, and refreshed. I carried that watermelon, what was left of it, back to the farmer and restored it to him and made him give me a ripe one in its place. Now, as for cats, I feel the company of a cat helps relieve my anxiety. I feel that when a man loves cats, I am his friend and comrade and need no further introduction. I feel that they are secret royalty, yet a home without a cat, a properly fed, petted, and revered cat. Well, it may be a perfect home, but how can it prove royalty? How can it prove title? And furthermore, if a man could be crossed between a cat, I feel it would improve the man, but it would deteriorate the cat. Now, as Steve Gillis predicted, I heard some stories up here in Calaveras County, especially at that deteriorating mining camp of angels, that helped me write some stories that have really helped me with my books and writings. And my favorite is the one of Tom Courts, who was owned by Dick Baker of Dead Horse Gulch. And if you'll attend the Mark Twain Wild West Fest in Angels Camp October 11th, why, I'll tell you that story then. And there you have it, the difference between morals and cats.
One other question. how would you like to be remembered here in Calaveras County?
I would care to be remembered as a friend to the citizenry, as an inspiration to the children, and as, of course, a friend and help to all animals that need it.
Well, wouldn't that be amazing if you had an elementary school named after you?
Oh,
or perhaps a hospital.
That'd be something, but I'd like to avoid the kind of draconian, the discipline where you have to, the child put their nose up against the chalkboard, or wear the dunce cap, or gets the paddle whack or the ruler on the knuckles. I wouldn't care to see that, but I wouldn't mind having an institution of education named after me.
That would be splendid. I think it would be quite an honor for our community, our fine community here. Well, Mr. Twain, we just appreciate you attending our gathering here. And
well, Miss Schlegel-McGuffel?
Schlegelmilch.
Schlegelmilch. Liefermilch.
Schlegelmilch.
Schlegersmilch. Das ist richtig. Dankeschön. Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. I hope I see each and every one of you and your students at the Mark Twain Wild West Fest at the Angels Camp Museum, and perhaps at the Virginia City, Carson City Mark Twain Days, or anywhere else I might be appearing. I could use the attention.
Yes, on October 11th. And our gentle people here, if you would stay around, stay seated for our next guest coming in. Thank you. Welcome back to the future with Discover Calaveras with Sharondipity. And our guest today is the actor Jeffrey Weissman. Thank you so much for coming on the show. The segment with Mark Twain was just fabulous. I appreciate it so much.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
And so our viewers would like to know a little bit of your background. I know you've been an actor. I've been an actor for over 50 years.
Yeah, I'm getting old. Yeah.
And I know one of the most famous things was the Back to the Future role. So can you tell us a little bit about the Back to the Future role?
Oh, jumping right in. I was asked to first be a photo double for Crispin Glover, who played George McFly in Back to the Future, the original, and was fitted for makeups, prosthetic makeups, basically like a mask, to recreate his look for 1955. So I figured, because I wasn't really being told what was going on with him, that they needed George in multiple places at the same time, like they had Michael's character Marty in multiple places at the same time. But eventually, after screen testing in that makeup and meetings with various parts of the crew, I learned that Mr. Glover was not coming back to reprise his role, that I would be playing the role. And I was like, how is that possible? You can't do that. He was so great in that role. I couldn't imagine how they were going to not make it work without him. But Robert Zemeckis and the rest of the crew and production team went into production very quickly with me getting into those makeups, which took 4 hours a day to apply, another hour at the end of a shoot day to remove. I did my best on recreating the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, kiss, and the fight with Biff in the parking lot. And then, of course, the 2015 McFly household hanging upside down as 77-year-old George. Did my best being thrown into the deep end, as 'twere, in the 11th hour. I think they were hoping to work out a contract agreement with Glover, but he was kind of being stubborn, demanding $1 million and script approval, is my understanding. And they weren't going to give him that. So that's how that came about. And they tried to keep me a secret because they used his life mask in my makeups. And because I was friendly with Crispin, I had worked with him on a film at the American Film Institute in '83 before he ever got George McFly. When learning from him that he never had an agreement for the use of his life mask, I gave him my photos and stories to help him with his case, which settled before it went to court, where he got about $750,000.
For using his likeness without his permission.
That's right.
Yeah, and of course that wasn't your only time in Hollywood.
No.
I know.
No, I'd been working in Hollywood. I had grown up in Hollywood.
Ah.
Okay. I was born in L.A. in Glendale, and my parents did various works that often they would brush with industry people. My mom was a bail bondswoman, bailed Lenny Bruce out of jail several times, and my father ran private bridge and backgammon clubs. And I remember as a kid once being kidnapped by Chico Marx's widow and hid under the table at his club, or meeting Omar Sharif, and my dad was partners in one club with Lauren Green of Bonanza, and so and Battlestar Galactica. So I had been around the movie industry and always wanted to be, on TV. I'd see Ron Howard and other kid actors, and I could do that. And my parents forbade me from acting, for pursuing an industry career. But they allowed me to do stage work in school and classroom work and so on and so forth. And finally, after doing shows at schools, junior high, high school, and community theater, when I turned 18, they couldn't tell me what to do anymore. So I started doing mostly background work in films, such as The Rose with Bette Midler and FM with Martin Mull and Eileen Brennan. And I got a union contract because I did some dance steps in a film called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees. And I get brainwashed by Alice Cooper in it and various other scenes. And I needed to be on a soundstage studio lot to feel what it was like. And ultimately, background work isn't very satisfying for an actor who wants to do storytelling. And I got good advice to get good training. And I, on the West Coast, went for the American Conservatory Theater and trained there and at university in San Francisco. And while there, fell into an opportunity to screen test for a film called War Games. The original director, Martin Brest, on that had told a big agent that I was his favorite for that role, for the lead of David in that role. And this agent pursued me and signed me, and I moved back to Los Angeles and started a 20-year career there in about 1982.
And so what has been your most favorite role that you've played?
Gosh. Yeah, that's a very tough question. I loved playing cowboy with Clint Eastwood. I'm in Pale Rider, his return to Western in the mid-'80s. And Pale Rider became the highest grossing Western of the 80s. And it was very exciting to be on location for about 6 weeks in Idaho with all these great talents. The ensemble cast that he cast was just amazing, from Richard Dysart and Richard Kiel, Jaws from the James Bond movies, and Chris Penn and Carrie Snodgrass and Michael Moriarty, and of course Clint, who was also directing. That was really thrilling for me as an actor. And then before that, my first co-star role was in Twilight Zone movie episode with John Lithgow on the airplane, the remake of Nightmare at 30,000 feet, or 20,000 feet with Shatner, 30,000 feet with Lithgow. And George Miller, who I was a fan of from his Mad Max movies, was the director, and we got along famously. He cast me, and on that set as well, I was with this just wonderful group of talented actors, Donna Dixon and J.D. Johnston, and of course John and Charles Knapp, and and Abby Lane, it was just thrilling for me to play this science fiction thing and be able to do improv like we did with the segment with me as Twain, but in front of the camera. And so the payoff for me, people always ask, would you prefer stage or film or television? And it's very hard for me to say which one, because I love, example, when I went to see Sgt. Pepper's, I went to like opening week in Westwood, and the theater is packed with over 500 screaming adolescent girls every time Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees come on, and I'm in a few scenes with those guys, so I'd hear the screaming again and kind of, wah! This is the adulation that is so much fun. Or seeing a bit that I came up with in the Clint Eastwood film and the audience laugh and really get tickled. That's a great payoff. When I'm on stage, say when I did, the film Fisher King with Robin Williams and Jeff Bridges, I got to play the Robin Williams role on stage in San Francisco at Magic Theater, and the connection with the immediate response with the audience, there really isn't anything more rewarding to get that sort of in tune with them, and you can, as a great conductor knows how to play the orchestra, you get to play the music of the play, and you can actually push the buttons of the audience by holding for a laugh or cutting off something or really driving home the drama. And that's as exciting as being in a house and watching the audience reaction to a film I've been in. On television, it's another animal. I guest starred on a lot of different series in the 80s, the Scarecrow and Mrs. King, and Diagnosis Murder was later, but little bits on Max Headroom and Dallas and other shows. And that is really exciting to be catered to by the crew, to be kind of considered as very important to the main cast members of a show. That's another benefit. And then also if the script is good, it really is just so terrific to be part of that creative process. The episode of Scarecrow and Mrs. King I was in was rated the second highest episode of that first season of that show. The first highest was when they finally kissed, Kate Jackson and Bruce Boxleitner. And just last year, I had no idea, but there is a Scarecrow and Mrs. King fan club. And they invited me to their 40-year anniversary. And when I showed up, I was just inundated with praise and, oh, you're here, we have to have your autograph. And every word they hung on. And there was a fan-written script competition. We were going to write a new script with reprising roles or what have you. And the one that won, my character was written back into it. So Scotty, who I had already, when I did the series way back in '84, I was told, oh, he's probably going to come back as a reoccurring regular, because I was the parking lot attendant where Scarecrow worked. That never happened. Finally, Scotty got to come back at this fan convention with 600 adoring fans. So that was a thrill. These are the different payoffs. Don't make a lot of money. And I coach and teach, and it's very difficult to make a living as an actor. So if you're watching this and I want to be an actor, I want to do it, great, do it if you must do it. If your heart's into it, do it, but get something practical that you can pay the bills, that you can raise a family. I was very fortunate in that good chunk of raising my children, I got a full-time job entertaining at a theme park, playing Stanley Laurel of Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin and Groucho Marx. And that was a blessing, a big blessing. It was odd to be in character 8 hours a day in a theme park, but I found the gold there. I learned how to greet in 15 different languages, because people from around the world, they know who Charlie Chaplin is or Stanley Laurel. And if you greet them in their tongue, they're immediately your best friend and have to have a picture with you, and you've made their day. So it's, you find the gold as you can. and it's a never-ending struggle that, I've only started playing Mark Twain up here in the Gold Country, and it's a little bit hard to pry the door open and prove myself, and also my wife likes my hair long, so she's, putting it up, coiffing. Generally, Twain's hair wasn't quite this long; it was more like this, but we're making it work and asking, the audience to suspend their belief a little.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us about being an actor. And we're so fortunate here in Calaveras that you are playing Mark Twain in our living history. And
thank you.
And thank you. And so what other places have you played Mark Twain?
I, at a very young age, started doing immersive entertainment at Renaissance fairs. Instead of running away with the circus, I ran away and worked at the Renaissance Fair. And I loved that I could improvise in Elizabethan tongue all day and create a character and do this sort of living history stuff, and started doing the Charles Dickens Christmas Fair. And then I started doing living history events for historical societies. The Sacramento Historical Society sponsored a 5-year gig in Old Sac, where I got to do 1850s. And I played a flim-flam man, a snake oil salesman, Dr. Cornelius Poindexter, purveyor of the miracle elixir, and cures whatever ails you. It's a laxative, it's a sedative, it's a restorative, all in one, and lowered to 47% alcohol, so it's safe for children. Just gigging and that was fun. And because I had the opportunity to play Mark Twain in 2008, I think it was, I auditioned and landed the part of Twain in 1867, recreating his trip to Europe and the Holy Land for PBS, a PBS movie called Dreamland, Mark Twain in Jerusalem. I started playing Mark Twain at the Living History events as well, hosting Mark Twain's Golden Melodeon Review at the old Eagle Theater there. So I sort of brought Twain out on stage instead of in front of the camera. And then after moving to the Gold Country, I've been asked, I played Twain for the Coulterville Historical Society there for their gala. And then more recently for El Campo de Sonora for their 150th anniversary theme, the tapestry, a cultural tapestry. It was really a lovely event. And I'm in talks with perhaps doing the Carson City, Virginia City, Mark Twain Days. So, fingers crossed, I can still work. I'm not making a living doing it, but I need to work. I came out of the womb kind of as a ham and needing to have attention, and luckily move that into storytelling.
And of course, you're going to be at the Mark Twain Fest, and so I think we should talk a little bit about the Mark Twain Fest.
Yes.
Which is going to be 19th century Wild West Gold Rush era in the Sierra Nevada. And we're going to have nonstop music.
Yeah, the cowboy trio, the Black
Irish Band.
Black Irish Band, 2 great bands on 2 different stages. So, and in between the bands, I'll be lecturing probably in one of the museum rooms. And if you haven't been to the Angels Camp Museum, it's fantastic. It looks like nothing really big when you pass it, but there's actually building after building after building, and they have probably one of the best carriage collections extant.
And it's on Main Street. It's North Main Street, I think 753 North Main Street. And I want to let our viewers know that there's lots of activities for the children. There's going to be gold panning, candle making, and all kinds of things, and lots of costume characters. In fact, we encourage people to attend the event in costume.
Yes.
It's going to be $10 but kids 12 and under are free. And there's, if you're worried about parking, there will be a complimentary shuttle from Bret Harte to the Angels Camp Museum. And again, for the entertainment, of course, you're going to be there doing living history. And also we're going to have like you mentioned, the Old West Trio, and that type of music is the old cowboy music, the Sons of the Pioneer type songs, and Gene Autry songs.
And the museum will be showing a brand new documentary on what's the gentleman's name? He's an Italian guy.
Andrew Galliardo.
Who they recently acquired a number of years of those prime gold rush years of his letters. And one of your staff here at the station, Susan, edited that documentary together for the museum. And that's going to be one of the highlights. There's, quite a few fantastic exhibits in the museum too. My favorite is also watching the jumping frog competition throughout the years.
Awesome. If you were able to reprise your role as Mark Twain at our jumping frog Jubilee.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to. And in studying Twain, there's something that I noticed that I don't think most people know, but he had, and that's the beauty of doing living history. I've become a historian. He had come close to death many times throughout his life. As a child, I think 3 times his mother would call for the priest to give last rites. When he was 12, the German measles epidemic was coming through, and he said, well, I guess I'm going to get it anyway. And he snuck out and went to a friend who had the measles and laid in bed with him.
Oh, gee.
And he caught it and had the measles for 2 weeks. And there he was on death's door again, and he pulled out of it. Time and again, when he went to the Sandwich Islands, he got a terrible illness, mystery illness, that laid him up for 3 months there, which actually was a mixed blessing because it provided him the time to really write out his stories of the Sandwich Islands, that later he bought those articles back and took his notes and wrote many of those chapters in Roughing It.
Yes.
And his first lecture series based on that too. It was fantastic.
Yes, that is great. And also I just wanted to, mention the some of the staff, or I guess, reunions that you're sometimes a part of. What type?
Oh, yeah.
And tell us about those.
I because of the Back to the Future family films that I'm in, the trilogy, I've been included in some of the reunions since this year is the 40th anniversary release of the first film. And this year I've been to New Orleans, Calgary, Dallas, specifically for those Back to the Future reunions. The one in New Orleans was just a few weeks after President Biden awarded Michael J. Fox the highest honor a civilian can get, the Medal of Freedom. And Mike had just come off his panel in his wheelchair, and I said, I have to congratulate. He reached out and grabbed me and said, I feel like I'm a kid again. I want to go out in the parking lot and dance naked. And anyway, it's just really thrilling because you become kind of a family. Even though you're only shooting for 6 weeks or a short amount of time, you work tight with that family, and you're all accessing the creative universe and working together to do this story. And with luck, it's going to have legs and last, and it does. And this is wonderful that, every so often I get to see Christopher Lloyd again, and I found out that Chris likes exotic plants. So my wife and I are kind of plant nerds, and we gave him a very rare B-52 bomber Venus flytrap. And when I gave it to him, he was like, oh, he loved it. And then a couple of years later, when I saw him in London at another Comic-Con, I said, how's that Venus flytrap? And he said, I killed it. I'm never home to water it. It's really fun to not only rub elbows and get together with those incredible talents that I worked with, but also to meet my heroes. I've met Sir Derek Jacobi, and this year I met William Shatner, and he, bent my ear for 10, 20 minutes talking about his exploits last year in Antarctica, and I was like, far out. And I also learned, because he was in that original episode of Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, when I told him I was in the remake of that, he goes, I was supposed to be in that. I remember I had a conflict and I couldn't do it. I was going to be a co-pilot or cameo or something. I was like, oh my God, I remember hearing about that when we shot it. Yeah. So it's always been very, very fun to, meeting Leonard Nimoy or,
to meet those
people
folks
that I adored growing up.
And how could viewers find out more about Jeffrey Weissman?
Oh, give me a call. No, I have a website, jeffreyweissman.com, JEFFREY and WEISSMAN. And I'm on Instagram at Jeffrey J. Weissman. On Facebook, I have a Jeffrey Weissman actor page. My private page, personal page is full to the max. They only allow you 5,000 friends, where it used to not be like that. I was up to 6,500. One day I woke up and 1,500 of my friends disappeared. I was like, what? Anyway, on Twitter, if you still do that thing, it's at JEF Weissman. And once again, you can email me through jeffreyweissman.com. If you're an actor and, I mentor, I give coaching, I often will do one-off intensives, and also I have a shop. If you have a Back to the Future fan in your life who collects photos and autographs, I have a shop that you can get merchandise and photos, rare photos, behind-the-scenes stuff, for fair market value.
And you're right here in the gold country, right
Yes.
here. That's great. And also, I want to make sure our viewers know where to look up more about the Angels Camp Museum and the Mark Twain Wild West Fest. It's angelscampmuseumfoundation.org. So please check that out. And thank you so much for being on the show, Jeffrey.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for
It's
having
been
me on. And we'll see you at Mark Twain's Wild West Fest.
On
October 11th. Yes.
Thanks for joining me. I hope you've been inspired to explore, support, and celebrate the amazing people and places right in our backyard. And if you know a hidden gem we should discover next, reach out to Public Access Television by calling 209-754-4021. Until next time, keep wandering, keep wondering, and keep discovering with Sharondipity.